From London, I'm John Weeks, and this is The Standard. Coming up on today's show, features journalist Maddy Mussen describes the latest fashion trend popping up on people's faces across London. But first, the Conservative Party is back on the attack this morning, launching an all-out tax war on Labour. Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has been on the airwaves, warning millions of people across Britain to start saving if they think Sir Keir Starmer will get into number 10.
It would be incredibly dangerous for this country to give a blank cheque for Starmer, give him a supermajority, and let him get on with taxing people in every single direction. And as I said, putting people's jobs at risk, which is what every Labour government has done in the past with more people unemployed.
Speaking on BBC Breakfast, he also called the Conservative Party the underdogs and insisted they're fighting for every single vote. It follows Rishi Sunak's widely criticised claim that a Labour government would mean every household would pay £2,000 more tax. So, will doubling down on this claim about higher taxes under Labour benefit the Tories? Joining me now to discuss it is our political editor, Nicholas Cecil. So, Nick, the Tories are doubling down on the higher taxes with Labour line. I understand Grant Shapps has been on the attack this morning. What's he been saying?
Yes, so the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, went on the attack claiming that if there is a Labour government, taxes would go up, in his words, on your home, on your car, on your job, and on your pensions. And the Tories are throwing a bit more into this attack line as well, claiming that council tax could also rise. The problem for the Conservatives here is that when they first launched their tax onslaught against Labour, their first claim unravelled quite quickly. So if you remember back to the first TV debate between Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister claimed that if there's a Labour government, then households would see their tax bill go up by £2,000. Here, what he didn't make clear, and what ministers have subsequently not made clear, is that this figure is over 4 years. So that this Tory claim of a £2,000 tax rise has been undermined by the Treasury, by independent fact checkers, and by the UK Statistics Authority. So it's a good area for the Tories to attack Labour on, because Labour have a record in the past of raising taxes. And at previous elections, the Tories have managed to get this message across that Labour governments may well raise taxes. The other issue happening at the moment is that there seems to be an internal dispute within the Conservative Party over whether to stick to this strategy of attacking Labour on tax, which doesn't actually seem to be working, or whether to turn the campaign the last few weeks into a deeply personal campaign against Sir Keir Starmer. If anything, they're going down in the polls at the moment rather than closing the gap on Labour. So the gap between the Tories and Labour has been around 20 points. Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, now appear to be eating into the Tory vote. And there's some signs that the Liberal Democrats are gaining some votes from Labour. So the gap remains at least at 20 points or so, according to a lot of polls. So the Tories somehow need to find a game changer. So one possibility was this, making these personal attacks on Starmer. But personally, I don't think that's going to work, because they tried it before. They tried to link him with Jeremy Corbyn. They tried to suggest that he's basically a friend of terrorists because of his previous work as a lawyer and so on. But this doesn't seem to have stuck. So it's debatable which is the best way forward for the Conservatives, but certainly it's looking at a very uphill task for them at the moment. One other interesting thing to say was Grant Shapps admitted that it's unlikely, or he said it was not likely, that the Conservative Party would win the election. So he's already warned of the possibility of Labour gaining a supermajority. That could be seen as trying to persuade people to stay at home, or not to give Labour such a majority and therefore not vote for them. But he's quite an open and frank politician, more than some others. And he said, you can't pretend black is white. And it's certainly looking like it's going to be a Labour win on July the 4th.
And were you surprised, Nick, that he has sort of effectively admitted that?
Not really, because it's so obvious. Politicians lose credibility if they say things which are patently untrue. Now, some politicians don't seem to understand this, but Mr. Schatz is one of those who does. And so, again, as I said, he's slightly more honest than many other politicians. And if politicians claim NHS waiting lists are going down when they're still very, very high, and they make claims on the economy, which are just obviously not true, voters just stop believing everything they say then. So politicians who aren't honest and who try to pull the wool over people's eyes eventually lose credibility and people stop listening to them.
And in that same kind of vein, Nick, with this sort of a tax attack on Labour, this £2,000 a year claim, which was largely criticised, to follow that up with even more of the same, do you think that will work for them? Do you think some of the electorate will believe what they're saying about taxes going up under the next Labour government?
Yes, I think there will be a section of the population that definitely will. And the other thing with elections is that while the political classes get very excited for a long time about them, most people in the country only tune in the last few weeks because they've got their lives to get on with and they've got far more important things, especially during a cost of living crisis, than worrying about who could be the next government. So there's still a lot to play for in the election. People will start to tune in now, I suspect, a lot more. And political messaging only really works by repetition. So politicians, they know that when they're getting utterly bored of saying something, then that message is starting to get through to many voters, so that they repeat the same message time and again. And that's what's happening on tax. So it's sowing doubt in people's minds over what a Labour government would do. And it's very possible that a Labour government would raise taxes after July 4th. And it's equally possible that the Tories could do something similar or do deeper cuts to public services. Because what the Institute for Fiscal Studies are saying, these are highly respected economists, they're saying that neither party is being honest with the electorate about what is coming after the election, because the public finances are in such dire straits that you probably either need to do tax rises after the election or some very painful public spending cuts to unprotected departments like the police, like local government, like the court system. So there are really no easy answers here.
And of course, Nick, it's not just Labour that's a worry for the Conservatives. Do you think the surge in support for reform, certainly according to the polls, has spooked the Tories?
Yes, this will send panic through the Tory candidates, particularly in the Red Wall, because if reform are on 4-5% of the polls, that's not a huge problem for them. But if reform get to double digits in the poll, where they are in many polls, then that is really eating into the Tory vote share and meaning that suddenly there are a lot more Tory seats that look very vulnerable. So we've really had two key moments in this election so far. The first was Nigel Farage's decision to become leader of Reform UK. And the second one was Rishi Sunak's decision to come home early from the ceremonies in France to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And that, I think that decision obviously backfired spectacularly on him and will have resonated around the country.
Let's take a quick break. In part 2, Maddy Mussen explains the growing use of spot stickers as a fashion accessory.
In theory, they are actually a lot better than whacking a load of concealer over it where it can't breathe and it's ostensibly going to get worse.
Welcome back. I'm now joined by features journalist Maddy Mussen, who's been investigating the rise in spot stickers across London. So first of all, Maddy, the clue's very much in the name with these, but what do these spot stickers look like and where did they actually come from?
Well, they can look like anything, really. They're most commonly, actually, I would say, in star form or star shape. But you can get like smiley faces, little round ones, kind of like the most basic form of them. You can get little hearts, little clouds. And where they came from is, honestly, I feel like they just popped up like a couple of years ago. They might have existed for much longer, but people didn't really latch onto them until the past 2 or so years. And what they do is they cover up your spot. That's kind of like the main function. But also they have this hydrocolloid gel in the underneath part of them that sticks to your skin that is aiming to kind of bring down any inflammation and keep any bacteria away from your spot so that it doesn't get worse.
Okay, so it does actually have some kind of medicinal element to it as well.
Yeah, some of them have like tea tree and salicylic acid and stuff as well. Some of them they come in different forms basically, but the standard ones just have hydrocolloid on it. So it's supposed to just kind of like, take down that inflammation. The main thing you'll see when you wear them is that you won't get rid of your spots. I don't think that they're any kind of like magical spot relief, but they will kind of bring down any massive like bump, or maybe they'll reduce the redness slightly.
So are these a better option in that case than concealer?
So I would say yes, but I spoke to 2 different experts for this piece that I wrote about spot stickers, and they said they had differing views in that they are a better option than concealer. However, they are not a better option than perhaps a completely clean and unprotected spot. Like if you're just going to be at home and you're going to be in a clean environment, then maybe having an aerated spot is better. But if you're going out, like for instance, if you're going to like a day festival or somewhere where you're going to get kind of dirty hands, or the air's not very pure, or you're going to have to keep topping up your makeup with dirty fingers, then in theory, they are actually a lot better than whacking a load of concealer over it where it can't breathe and it's ostensibly going to get worse.
And it's interesting you mention festivals there, Maddy, because I'm sort of picturing it as a festival fashion accessory. Are people wearing these elsewhere?
Oh yeah, like it's weird. They're really showing a range of places. So I went to a day festival. I went to Gala Festival in Peckham not long ago. I can't remember, maybe like 3 weeks ago. And that was the first time I saw people wearing them like out. And then I went to a club last week and I saw people wearing them at the club. And then I've seen people wearing them to work, which I've been quite surprised by, which I think is quite nice that like, because obviously like there's nothing unprofessional about a spot. Therefore, there shouldn't be anything unprofessional about covering up a spot if you have to. Like, I think it's any way you want to deal with a spot is up to you. But yeah, like people are really wearing them like it's total range the way people were wearing them.
And is this a sort of Gen Z thing, Maddy, or has it spread further afield?
So I thought it was very much a Gen Z thing, but then I was speaking to my friend Evie, who's a stylist, and she's 29 and she's really latched onto it. She wears them all the time. In fact, I think they're her preferred method now, way above concealer. And yeah, she really likes it, but she said that when she went into her office, her boss, who wasn't a millennial or a Gen Z, she was older, was like, what is that on your face? So I do think that maybe it's filtered up to millennial, but whether it will get much further, I don't know.
Fair enough. And for you personally, Maddy, are you going to embrace this trend or steer clear?
I already have, John. I'm very much embracing it. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to the point where I'm okay wearing them to the office. I also think it depends what kind of job you have. So if you're working in like a not super corporate office, I really think that like you might as well wear it to the office. Like, why the hell not? And also like I've been wearing them recently at home, on trains. Yeah, if I'm traveling, like what's the point of me like looking extra nice? I might as well just have a pimple patch on instead so that it doesn't have to be seen, but I'm not making it any worse. I think, to be honest, if I had a pimple in a really nicely placed area, I might wear it to a festival. But like, I don't want, if it's like on my chin, I feel like that's quite obviously like a spot. But if it was like somewhere cute on my cheek, then maybe I would wear it to a festival.
There's more news, interviews and analysis in the Evening Standard newspaper and at standard.co.uk. Thanks for listening. We're back tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock.